Well, there were no blockbusters in the Shohei Ohtani saga over the weekend, but there was a few interesting developments. And we learned that Shohei will talk to the media on Monday. We're going to dig into that and a bunch more. So let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Dodger fans, this is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks to our everydayers for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. Please subscribe wherever you're watching or listening right now. My name is Jeff Snyder. My normal co-host is Vince Semperio, although it's just me today. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans, just like a lot of you. We've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room, so we're not quite insiders, but we bring you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. And getting started here, there was, we'll give probably going to be a daily update these days on the Shohei Ohtani saga. No major news this weekend, but there was a lot of minor news. Some expected, some less expected. We did find out on Sunday that Ohtani said he will talk to the media on Monday. At this point, we don't know if it's just going to be reading a prepared statement or if he will be taking questions. My guess would be the former. It seems like probably at this point, with attorneys involved and everything, that he is going to stick to his messaging pretty straight, and throw in the fact that his interpreter is, he may not have somebody he's comfortable with yet answering questions without an interpreter. Obviously there are other interpreters. Will Ayrton has been filling in Korea. We don't know if Will the Thrill is the long-term plan or if Ohtani and Yamamoto will share the interpreter or if they'll bring in somebody new. We don't really know. But either way, I would guess that Ohtani won't be taking questions on Monday, but he will be talking to the media, at least giving a statement, and we'll see what it says. There's plenty of things to talk about. Other news that came down this week, obviously on Friday, MLB announced that they are officially investigating the situation. Which is, we knew an investigation was going to come. It was a little bit surprising that the investigation hadn't started yet. It was a little bit interesting that they announced it late on a Friday evening or late afternoon with NCAA tournament stuff going on. Kind of a classic Friday news dump thing, but also it was about when we would have expected it. We knew they were going to investigate. So the fact that they're investigating is news, except it's not. It's news that we knew was coming, so maybe slightly less news than something else might have been. The other news over the weekend, mostly on Sunday, came out that Ippei Mizuhara, obviously Shohei's interpreter, who is at the center of all of this, may have lied about some things on his resume. His bio in the Angels media guide for the last several years includes a few things that seemed like maybe they weren't entirely truthful. Said he graduated from UC Riverside. UC Riverside has said not only do they not have a record of him graduating, they don't have a record of anybody with that name ever even going to the school. That was reported by Sam Blum on Blum, BLUM. I actually don't know how he pronounces it, but he was reporting that on The Athletic. He said that he reached out to UC Riverside to ask about the possibility of Ippei attending there under a different name. We don't have any record of Ippei ever having a different name, or they also asked if maybe somebody with a similar name. And we do know that Japanese names, like for example, in Japan, Ohtani is spelled without an H. It's just Otani, but Ohtani's first baseball card, his first Bowman baseball card was spelled Otani. And then he made the decision when he came to the US to spell it in America, Ohtani. So there could be different spellings. I assume UC Riverside wouldn't have gone through all the hassle of making a public statement without checking like variations, close names. So I assume that's legit, but you never know. But they didn't get it. Sam Bloom didn't get any comment from them about maybe a different name. But then also the Angels media guide said that he worked for the Yankees in spring training with Hideki Okajima. Okajima got cut before spring training started in 2012, the year that theoretically Ippei had worked for them, and maybe he was involved prior to him being cut. So maybe not. That could be a question of semantics. He worked for them with him before he got cut, which happened to be before spring training started, and it just morphed into work for them during spring training. That one could be innocent, but it's one of those things where you throw all these things on, and who knows? There's also been reports. Several different articles have said that he worked for the Red Sox in 2010, interpreting for Okajima, and the Red Sox have disavowed that, and all news reports from the time list a different guy as Okajima's interpreter. All of this kind of brings up a question that our buddy Locked On Dodgers insider Pat Dwyer was wondering about as far as background checks. And I'm torn on what I think the Dodgers should have done, because the fact is the Dodgers signed Ohtani and Ippei just came along for the ride. There was obviously the Dodgers weren't going to let Ippei be the thing that keeps them from signing Ohtani. When a free agent of Ohtani's stature wants to sign, it's like, okay, yeah, you want your interpreter you've had for the last 6 years with the Angels? Great, bring him along. So I don't know if I think the Dodgers really should have done a background check. It's not like, Ippei mostly just interacts with Ohtani. And so it's like, while the Dodgers are the one paying him, he's kind of more Ohtani's employee at that point. And so I imagine they just say, okay, well, yeah, bring your guy. And I don't know if I think they should have done more. The fact is we didn't, nobody suspected this. Nobody, although now the other things I've read, that some reports that Ippei has been big into gambling, and that's the thing, gambling gets lumped into one thing. And I mentioned on Thursday, I think, how it's not lost on me the fact that FanDuel is the title sponsor of this episode. Gambling on sports is legal in a lot of places in the United States, not in California. One thing I've learned, though, is that we have a lot of listeners and viewers of this podcast who aren't in California, and that's why I think for FanDuel, it continues to be worth it to them to sponsor our podcast, even though theoretically we're talking to mostly Californians. There's a lot of other people. And anyway, going back to my point, not all gambling is the same. You can, gambling can be done responsibly, and it can be done legally. And so when people say that Ippei has always been big into gambling, that means he likes playing poker on the team planes and whatever. The reports are that he met the bookie in question at a poker game that he went to with former Angel David Fletcher. And so, yeah, there's just so many unanswered questions here still. And hopefully we will get answers. The policy here at Locked On Dodgers is going to remain what it is, which is that we're not going to jump to conclusions based on partial information. And that has a lot of people upset in our comments, thinking that by not jumping to conclusions, we're jumping to the conclusion that Ohtani is 100% innocent in all this. We're not jumping to that conclusion either. But I am, by nature, I generally assume the best of it. In fact, when the Astros cheating scandal came down, my first response was, I really hope that's not true. I love baseball, and I hated the idea of the Astros tarnishing baseball by cheating like that. And now we're going to get Astros fans. Everybody was doing it. Anyway, but I don't want things to tarnish the game of baseball because I love baseball. And so, yes, I am hoping that Shohei Ohtani was not involved in any of this. And I will continue hoping that until evidence tells us that he was. And so far, we just have a lot of stuff and we don't really know what happened. So we'll continue to talk about the things that are interesting here, report the things that we're reading. But for the most part, we're not going to jump to conclusions until we know what's going on. And hopefully we'll get some answers on Monday when Shohei talks to the media. We're not going to get all the answers, I'm sure. I'm sure there's no smoking gun. I wish there was just some. I keep wishing there was like a surveillance video of Ippei, sneaking in and looking around and then sending a wire transfer. And obviously, we're not going to get anything that clear cut. But I'm hoping that at some point we will get some realistic view of what actually happened here. And until then, we'll just keep plugging along. The good news is the Dodgers are back on U.S. soil and they're back in spring training. After playing 2 regular season games, they played the first of 3 spring training games against the Angels on Sunday. They won 5-3. And along with that, we found out the Dodgers rotation for this series and by extension for the regular season. So we're going to dig into that. So thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. And please keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a 1 seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So if you think you have a sure thing, bet $5 on it. When that's right, you get $200 in bonus bucks to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. Just visit fanduel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. Hey, we're back. I want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Especially want to thank our everydayers. Those of you who are with us every weekday morning, we really appreciate it. If you're not an everydayer, it's really easy to become one. Just watch or listen every weekday morning or as close to it as you can. You can also go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. It's a text message-based service. We text you out our thoughts on things that are going on. You can reply. You can have one-on-one conversations. It's a lot of fun. It's just a few bucks a month with a free 14-day trial. So be sure to check that out by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Also be sure to check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, the 2 24/7 streaming channels on YouTube from the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Obviously, if you want the whole world of sports, Locked On Sports Today is for you. If you just focus on LA, Locked On Sports Los Angeles, but both of those channels are going full-time over at YouTube. And jumping back into our episode, the Dodgers, like I said before the break, they played the first game of the Freeway Series against the Angels on Sunday. They won 5-3. Bobby Miller pitched this game, and he looked really, really good. Pitched 4 2/3 innings, struck out 5, 4 hits, 1 walk. Solid outing as he gets ready to, as we learned, pitch the second game of the domestic schedule. Tyler Glasnow will start the home opener on Thursday. Bobby Miller will take the ball on Friday, and then Yoshinobu Yamamoto will pitch on Saturday. So when the Dodgers originally announced that Glasnow and Yamamoto were going to pitch the 2 games in Korea, Dave Roberts kind of said it would probably be that same order once they came back to the United States for the regular season, but nothing was ever official, and now we see that they've slotted in Bobby Miller between those 2. No real word at this point whether there was that had anything to do with Yamamoto's tough start in Korea against the Padres. It could have been because of that. It could just be, let's give him another day of rest, although only throwing 40-something pitches and then having a week off. It's probably not rest-based, but it could just be a matter of Bobby Miller has kind of earned this. And we even talked a month or so ago, before they said that Glasnow would start on Thursday, we talked about the fact that maybe they might go with Glasnow and Yamamoto in Korea and then let Bobby Miller start the home opener, because Miller is kind of an ace of the future. The Dodgers do have Glasnow locked up long-term. They have Yamamoto locked up long-term, but Miller is young and dynamic, and, not to say, anybody, like all 3 of those guys, none of them have enough experience with the Dodgers to say they've earned it. Where there's like, it would be a slap in the face to not give that nod to them. Glasnow has earned it the most in his big league career. And I think that's a big part of why he got the opening day and the home opener starts, because he is the most established and accomplished in Major League Baseball of the three. But Miller, I like this. Giving Miller that game to start also means that I'll get to see Yamamoto in person because I will be at the games on Thursday and Saturday, the home opener, and then the Freddie Freeman bobblehead. And so I'm excited about that. I do think that Yamamoto is going to bounce back, and maybe not bounce all the way back. I'm not saying he'll look like a Cy Young contender, but I do think we're going to see a much better version than what we saw against the Padres in Korea. And yeah, so that was interesting. The other part of that rotation that was interesting is, Gavin Stone, we knew he earned that last spot in the rotation because Emmett Sheehan is hurt. There was a spot open. It came down to mostly Gavin Stone or Michael Grove. And Gavin Stone got that spot, and we refer to it as the 5th spot in the rotation. And that's still true. But as far as actual order goes, he will be the 4th starter. He will start the game on Sunday. Then James Paxton will be the 5th starter. And again, there's 2 different definitions of a 5th starter. There's a guy like Paxton will be starting 5th in order. But if and when Emmett Sheehan gets healthy, it would be most likely Gavin Stone's spot that he would be taking over. Stone is more likely to leave the rotation than Paxton, unless, performance dictates it. But, Stone is basically in Sheehan's spot in the rotation, even though Paxton is the 5th starter, if that makes sense. And again, that's all semantics. It's something that only matters the first time through. We've heard people ask us about, well, should the Dodgers put Paxton at the 3rd starter? So you go righty, righty, lefty, righty, righty. But realistically, that only matters the first time through, because when you have 4 righties and 1 lefty in your rotation, every time after that first week, it's going to go righty, righty, lefty, righty, righty, or righty, 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 lefty, or lefty, righty, 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 depending on when you start, because it's always going to be 4 righties in a row and a lefty. And so Paxton makes sense starting 5th. It would have been not that it makes more sense than him being the 4th starter. And Dave Roberts, I don't think, went into detail about why they're doing that order, but I don't know that it matters really. I'm excited about this Dodgers rotation. I think, obviously Glasnow looked really good against the Padres. He has great stuff. I'm excited to see Glasnow in action on Thursday. Bobby Miller, you guys know I'm very high on Bobby Miller and Gavin Stone, both of those young guys. Miller throws hard, has the great curveball, great changeup, very dynamic. The slider looked good tonight on Sunday. And Gavin Stone, he's got that changeup that I love. And then you've got Yamamoto, who I do think is going to bounce back and have a good season. And you got Paxton, who in his career, when he's healthy, he's pretty darn good and definitely good enough to be a 5th starter. And so it's nice to know what the order is. It's that last checkbox. And we're going to talk in the next segment about the bullpen, which is also set now. Like, we have the roster. The Dodgers, when you go to MLB.com and search for Dodgers roster, there are 26 guys on it right now. The Dodgers opening day roster is set. And, there's some surprises, not so much the personnel as far as starting pitching and position players. A little bit of a surprise in the bullpen that we'll talk about in the next segment, but having this roster set, it's just like that next checkbox of it's baseball season. And the fact is it's March 25th. Interestingly, March 25th, the Monday of opening day 5 years ago, is when we started this podcast. March 25th, 2019 was our very first episode. So this is our 5-year anniversary. Happy anniversary to us. Nice of Vince to show up. But we're at baseball season. Like, the Dodgers have already played 2 games, but starting on Thursday, everybody is in regular season, and that's exciting. I'm excited to go down for the home opener. It's something. I had the season tickets for 10 years. Obviously, one of those years there were no fans in the stands. The other 9 seasons, I think I went to 7 of the home openers plus 1 away opener. In 2021, my boys and I went to the opening day in Colorado, and then went down to LA and went to the home opener in LA too. And I know I missed I think it was 2014 after the Dodgers opened the season in Australia. I think I missed the home opener that year. And then one other year, I think I missed it. But so I've been to a lot of home openers, and it's always fun. It's always a great time. This one obviously is going to have more excitement than some with the additions of Ohtani and Yamamoto and Glasnow and Teoscar and all those guys. And obviously it's going to be dampened a little bit because of all that's going on with Ohtani and Ippei right now. But I think it's still going to be a really, really fun time. I'll be sitting with Everydayer Steve, my buddy he's become, I met him through the podcast and we become really good friends. And it's a lot of fun. I'm going to be sitting with him and his family like I did for the postseason last year. Hopefully better results than we had in the postseason last year. I don't think those two games were our fault, but we'll find out Thursday and Saturday, I guess. If you're going to be at either of those games, love to say hi. I'm going to be sitting at the top of the loge section. They've got the little, I think they call them party boxes. So it's not a suite, but it's just like a little roped off area with benches and stools. We'll be sitting there. So right at the top of loge, right behind home plate. I think we're section one game, and section 3, the other game, or something like that. So I'm easy to spot. I'm huge. And my Dodgers jersey says at Snydog on the back. So easy to spot me. And if you're there, you see me, please say hi. My boys will be with me on Thursday, and my wife and my brother will be with me on Saturday. And, I always like it when my kids or my wife think I'm cool. So come by and say hi. Love meeting everydayers, or even some dayers. You don't have to be an everydayer to say hi to me. But I'm going to come back in a minute. I'm going to talk about the Dodgers bullpen. The other interesting notes that we got this weekend as far as what the Dodgers roster will look like. Like I said, it's set. We know the pitchers, and there's at least one little bit of a surprise. So thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning, and please continue to keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV. Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing TV that provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV. Whether it's opening weekend for baseball or the college basketball tournament, you're going to want to have a Fire TV. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see showing a picture. This is my sons watching Stranger Things in our Suburban while their dad was slaving away driving to Arizona. The boys just chilling in the back, watching Netflix on their Fire TV stick. It is a great, handy little tool that you can plug in anywhere, hotel rooms, cars, wherever you can watch what you want to be watching. Also, Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels let you dive into all the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on all the latest in the world of sports, March Madness, NBA, MLB, and lots more. Not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, and cooking videos as well. Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me on this. To learn more, visit amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. Hey, I'm back. I want to thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Thanks to our everydayers. Please become an everydayer. You can also become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. And you can check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, the two 24/7 streaming channels over on YouTube from the Locked On Podcast Network. Also, if you're watching this on YouTube, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the YouTube comments section. If you're listening on the podcast, you can reach out to us in all the different ways. I'll give you contact info at the end. You can also, if you're listening on the podcast, but it's something you want to comment on, we did have one guy say he listens on Spotify, but then he hopped over to YouTube to comment and yell at me about something. I think we cleared things up. But yeah, so we love hearing from you guys. So let's hear it. And last topic, the bullpen is set. Like I mentioned, we know the Dodgers 26-man roster opened the season, and maybe the biggest surprise, or maybe not a surprise, it's not quite the right word, but when the Dodgers announced last week that Kyle Hurt would be on the opening day roster in Korea and be in the bullpen, we talked about the possibility that he might be able to extend that and be in the bullpen when the Dodgers domestic schedule starts. And we didn't necessarily think it was likely, but it turns out that is the case. He is on the roster. And it's hard to say whose spot he earned it over. I guess it would probably be JP Fireeisen was maybe the guy who we would have expected to be in the big leagues who isn't, because Fireisen and Landon Knack are the two guys who were optioned. And Gus Varland were optioned to the minors who were on the roster in Korea and aren't. I think of those three, Fireisen was the most likely to be on the big league roster. And the fact is, Fireisen did struggle a little bit in Korea. He also struggled a little bit this spring, just doesn't look quite as dominant. He had an 8.10 ERA in the spring. He's got a 27 ERA because he's allowed 3 runs in 1 inning against the Padres. So, it's not really surprising to see Fireisen not in there. And that was kind of what we talked about with Kyle Hurt, the possibility that he could, if somebody doesn't perform, he could take that spot. And as we see right now, Kyle Hurt will be in the big leagues on opening day. And that's exciting. He's the Dodgers might still see him long-term as a starter, but he will be starting the season in the bullpen, probably a multi-inning guy when they need it, but he can also go 1 inning. He's got great stuff for 1 inning. Or a couple innings. We saw both with him and Michael Grove in that game against the Padres, the second game. Both of them pitched well in their first inning and then didn't pitch as well in the second inning. I don't think that's necessarily a thing. I think it was 1 game, and it's hard to draw any conclusions from 1 game. So I do think they are going to use Hurt in situations where they need, if a starter only makes it through 4 2/3 or something, you can see them bringing him to finish off an inning and then pitch the next inning, or even if he goes through, makes it 4 innings, pitch all the 5th and the 6th to get, to bridge to the late inning relievers, kind of the same role that Ryan Yarbrough is going to play, the same role that Michael Grove is going to play. So the Dodgers do come into the season with 3 multi-inning relievers. And obviously early in the season, that's more important because guys are still getting built up. We do have a lot of guys in this Dodgers rotation who there's need to limit the innings, or at least ramp up the innings wisely and judiciously. Glasnow and Paxton both have injury histories. Miller and Stone are both young. Yamamoto is on a new schedule, pitching more frequently than he's used to. So all 5 of those guys, there's reasons to say, we may not want him to throw more than 80 pitches in his first couple starts. And that could, depending on how things go, that could mean not even getting through 5 innings, and definitely having a harder time getting through 6 innings. And so having those multi-inning relievers there, it's also multi-inning relievers are really nice when you do have a blowout one way or the other. If you're up 9-2 and you can just say, hey, Kyle Hurt, you're going to pitch the last 3 innings of this game, you just saved your bullpen. Or if you're down 9-2 and have somebody just finish off the game, there's a lot of value in that, so that when you do have a closer game, you can just bring in all your high leverage relievers. There's so much value in a long reliever that has kind of like baseball's gotten away from the long reliever a little bit over the years, as it's just been boom, 1 inning guy throwing 1,000 miles an hour and just a line of those guys. But early in the season, when your starters aren't going to give you 6 innings very often and not going to give you 7 innings ever, Vince and I were just talking the other day about how he's surprised he's never gotten the hiccups during the podcast, because he apparently gets the hiccups a lot. Well, here I am with little hiccups. Sorry about that. Maybe now that I said it out loud, they'll go away. But this early in the season, long relievers are super valuable. And I think it's going to be interesting to see if the Dodgers stick with these 3 long relievers as the season goes on, because there's no reason that it couldn't be useful. It's just that the teams have kind of gotten away from it. But with this Dodgers offense, I think it's likely that we're going to see more games where they do have a big-ish lead, where, we're up by 5 runs. Let's just have Ryan Yarbrough finish this out. There's no need to go to Joe Kelly and Evan Phillips and obviously Bruce Gratterall when he's back. Another thing I'm interested to see, Ryan Brazier pitched again on Sunday and struggled again a little bit. He's had, obviously he signed right before spring training, and that was interesting, but his spring training was rough. He allowed 8 runs in 6 innings, something like that, 8 or 9 runs in 6 innings. He did pitch 1 scoreless inning in Korea. But then he struggled again, gave up a couple of hits against the Angels today, gave up a couple runs. So we'll see what happens there. But I don't think that Dodgers are going to have a short leash with Ryan Brazier by any means, but he will pitch probably some lower leverage spots to start the season and just try to get him back into the dominant reliever that he was last year. Then, you've got Daniel Hudson. You've got a lot of guys who it's going to be interesting to see how the roles play out, especially when Gratterall does come back. And it'll be interesting to see whose spot Gratterall takes when he does come back, because that might be Kyle Hurt. Kyle Hurt might be a short timer. We'll see. But for now, at least, we're going to have 3 long relievers in the Dodgers bullpen, a back end of the bullpen that has potential to be pretty dominant. It's going to be fun. And I do think the Dodgers bullpen is going to be a strength this year. We'll see how it plays out. And as the guys shake out, Joe Kelly, there's always question marks about him. Alex Vesia is a big question mark right now. So there's things to play out. And I'm just excited that Kyle Hurt's in the bullpen because that changeup, you guys know how I feel about a changeup. Kyle Hurts is one of the best. It's right up there with Gavin Stone's. It's a lot of fun to watch. He's pumping 97, 98, and then throwing that changeup. It's not really fair. And I like that when the not fair is in my team's favor. So that's the Dodgers roster. We've got their 13 position players, their 13 pitchers. It's all set. We're not going to have any surprises on Thursday opening day unless, there's surprises, but we're not expecting, like, when you get the roster down to 26, 4 days before opening day, your plan is to leave it at those 26. So anything else would be a change in plans. I'm excited. It's baseball week, guys. We're starting our 6th year now of Locked On Dodgers. Having so much fun talking Dodgers with you every weekday morning. We've never missed a day. We don't plan to start now. This week, we will have Vince and me together for Tuesday and Wednesday's episodes, Monday night and Tuesday night. And then probably Vince solo on Wednesday night / Thursday morning, just because I will be in my car driving down. And then Vince and I will be together after the game on Thursday at some point Thursday evening. We will be doing our Friday episode talking about, we will have both watched the Dodgers at the home opener in person. We'll have a lot to say about that. So it's going to be a fun week, a fun season. Looking forward to it. Thank you all for, especially our everydayers. Thanks for being with us. If you're not an everydayer, please become one by watching and listening every weekday morning. Remember, you can become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. It's just a few bucks a month with a free 14-day trial. You can text back and forth with us about a lot of stuff. It's a lot of fun. You can check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, the 2 24/7 streaming channels on YouTube from the Locked On Podcast Network. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Vince is on Twitter at VinceSense91. I'm on Twitter at Snydog. Our DMs are open there. You can also email us, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or you can send us a voicemail or a text message at 323-863-LOCK5625. We are here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or sit on your couch, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. We'll talk to you tomorrow.